As we celebrate Mom's birthday, the girls have asked me to share just a short devotional here. Hebrews chapter 11 is referred to as the Hall of Faith chapter. We don't know who the author is of this book. Perhaps it's Paul, perhaps it's Timothy. We really don't know. The author is going to explain what faith is. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. A lot of times, I think Paul Tripp, who's one of my favorite authors, has said, what we need in this world is not more theology. What we need in this life is not more understanding and wisdom. What we need is more imagination. Now, at first, that doesn't sit well. But then he goes on to explain that imagination is the grasping and understanding and holding to the things that we do not see. This is faith. What we need more in this country is faith. What we need more in this world is faith. Faith of things that aren't seen. Jump down to verse 11, and we see this played out a little bit more. Verse 11, the author's talking about a lady by the name of Sarah. Sarah is an old lady. Always wanted to have a kid. It says here in verse 11, by faith, Sarah herself received power to conceive even when she was past her age. Remember the story. We all know the story very well. Sarah and Abraham are told that they're going to be the forefathers of a great generation, but yet they have no kids. And the man of the Lord, the angel of the Lord, appears to Abraham and Sarah and says, hey, by the way, the time has come that you're going to conceive. Now, Sarah's an old lady. Now, at first she laughs. But God proves to her that he's serious. And he says, I'm going to give you something very, very, very special. And she clings on to that hope of that promise. And, of course, she conceives. And she has a son. She names him Isaac. Verse 12, talking about the son. Therefore, from one man were born the descendants that are as many of the stars of heavens. They are as innumerable, they're not countable, just like the grains of sand by the seashores. God says, I'm going to do something pretty big here. Now, Sarah didn't live long enough to see all that. The promises, the hope of this one child was all she clung to, but God had a bigger plan for her in her faithfulness. Jump down to verse 31, and here's where I'm like, why would you even include this lady? But the author does, and I'm going to include her in the devotional here because the author is right for including her. Verse 31, by faith Rahab, and I'm telling you, if I included this, if I were writing this, I at least wouldn't have said what her occupation was. Verse 31, by faith Rahab the prostitute did not perish with those who were disobedient. This is in reference to when the spies come into Jericho. God's getting ready to just crush the walls of Jericho. And the spies were there investigating the city, and they were being chased after by the leaders of the city. And Rahab takes them in. She hides them. She's obedient. She shows herself faithful. And it says here in verse 31, how was she faithful? She gave them a friendly welcome. She was hospitable. And in her hospitality, God spared her. But if we go back and we look at the lineage of Jesus Christ, she received so much more than she spared more than just her people there in Jericho, because she's listed as a part of the lineage of the Savior of the world. This is Rahab the prostitute. Did she realize that at the time? No. Her acts of faithfulness went far beyond the moment. Let's jump down to the end of this chapter so we can put it all together here. Verse 39, and all these, though commended through their faith, so the author's saying all these people that we're talking about, they're to be commended for their faithfulness. They didn't see the end of the promise. Sarah did not see her lineage become as innumerable as the sand at the beach. In verse 40, God provided something better for us. Now, he's talking about the people who are reading his book, his letter. And the author of Hebrews is saying, we are the recipients of their faithfulness. And what we receive from their faithfulness is so much more. From Rahab, her family was spared, but we got a Savior. From Sarah, she got Isaac, but we got the whole Jewish nation. A whole group of people who followed Jesus Christ, or who followed God, which from there came Jesus Christ. We have received so much more. And I can't help but to think in this passage of what Paul wrote in Ephesians. He writes, now unto him who is able to do exceeding abundantly above that which we even think to ask for. In other words, I'm serving a God who I have hope in my service to God, who's going to give and use this work far more than I can even think to imagine about. That's big. God thinks big. And through you and Dad's faithfulness over the years, Mom, what you have given us exceeds far more than you can even imagine. You know, what this text is saying is that your faithfulness, your clinging to the hope that the hard work that you're giving, that will be abundant, and that will provide something better for me and my sisters, for my wife and my brother-in-laws, for my kids, my nieces, my nephews. Your faithfulness will return something far better for the generations yet to come, for generations that will never even know you. Your faithfulness counts for the embetterment and provides for those people. So, Mom, as we celebrate you, we want to thank you that you have held to the promise of hope that God has given you. We thank you that we are privileged enough to be the recipients, not just the children of Farmer Sandy, not just the children of the best tractor driver in the world. We are the children of, we are the recipients of a lady who has clung tightly to the promises and the hope of her Savior. She's clung tightly to the hope of the promises of her God. And we thank you because we realize from this text that certainly affects us. Mom, we love you. We love you so much. And we will never know the fullness of your faithfulness, the times that you were faithful to God in the quiet moments when no one was watching. We thank you for that. We thank you for the big ways that you've shown yourself faithful. through the Harvest Teen Rally, the Live Nativity Walk. We thank you for teaching Sunday school. I mean, who would have thought 15, 20 years ago that you were teaching a student who is going to be my son-in-law? We have no idea the fullness in the moment. But Mom, thank you. Thank you for serving your God, for being all in what God has called you to. May our children, may our grandchildren all benefit and also follow in the example that you've provided in your faith.